seeing all these people in front of you. What do you think they are doing? Actually, they are all here, looking for marriage partners for their children, younger relatives, or even their clients. Here, behind every single piece of paper, is a person who desperately needs to get married. The paper details their personal information along with their requirements or expectations for a future partner. In present-day China, whether in big cities or small ones, a deeply fractured scene is playing out everywhere. In the parks, it's crowded with anxious parents holding up matchmaking signs, searching for marriage partners for their children every single day. On the other hand, the young people whom these parents are trying to match sit quietly in office cubicles or in their rented rooms after work, displaying an astonishing indifference toward the idea of marriage. This is the cruel reality facing China today. Young people simply don't want to get married, and they don't want to have children too. In traditional Chinese thinking, getting married and having children before the age of 30 is a mandatory stage in life, an absolute requirement that no one is exempt from. If you haven't gone through this process, or if you are still unmarried and childless after 30, you are considered an abnormal outlier. Perhaps you are too poor to afford the responsibilities of raising a family, or maybe you have severe health issues. In short, it is deemed abnormal. However, over the past decade, the phenomenon of young Chinese people opting out of marriage and childbirth has become increasingly common. Nowadays, many of those making the choice to not marry, not have kids, are actually well-educated young people with decent jobs and fairly good incomes. It's not that they lack the ability to start a family. Rather, they are actively choosing to give up on marriage and the traditional mandatory stages of life. Today, this is no longer just an issue for a certain few. It has become a social issue, impacting economic development. The number of marriage registrations in China has been declining for 10 consecutive years, and the age of first marriage continues to be pushed back. In many large cities, the average age for first marriage is now approaching or even exceeding 32. The birth rate has also dropped to a historic low. In fact, many maternity hospitals have been forced to shut down due to a lack of expectant mothers, and numerous kindergartens have closed because there aren't enough children to enroll. As a result, a large number of doctors, nurses, and teachers have lost their jobs. Therefore, this has long ceased to be the individual choice of a few rebellious youths. Rather, it is a massive, silent, collective retreat from marriage. What on earth happened? Why don't young Chinese people want to get married and have kids anymore? Actually, it's not that young people in China have suddenly lost interest in love and children. It's that they realized, under the current environment for survival, The cost of maintaining a family is exceeding the limits of what ordinary people can bear. Most young people in China today are only children without siblings. If you marry and have a child, it means that after marriage, the two young people must not only care for four aging parents, but also raise the next generation. This family structure is like massive leverage. The slightest disturbance, such as unemployment or illness, will cause the entire family's financial situation to face collapse. In China, marriage is not as simple as two people getting a certificate and living together. It is a game of asset restructuring between two families. Housing is the first insurmountable hurdle. In today's China, without a house of your own, a young man is virtually automatically disqualified from the marriage market. Take my current situation, for example. When I was 30, I didn't own a house, which made getting married very difficult. Now, I am 40 years old, and I still haven't bought a house of my own. Marriage is no longer a possibility for me. Even though I might be able to save enough money to buy a house in a few more years, by then it will simply be too late. This often means that for a young couple to get married, they need to drain the life savings of both sets of parents just to scrape together a down payment, and then take on a massive 30-year mortgage. For most ordinary people, this price is exceedingly high, not to mention the exorbitant future costs of raising a child. In addition to the immense economic pressure, another key factor is the divergence in views on marriage and family between unmarried young men and women. Over the past decade or so, feminist ideas have spread widely in China, significantly influencing many young women. At the same time, the educational attainment of young people in China has risen significantly. A large number of young people with higher education have developed their own views on marriage and family. In particular, young women no longer accept traditional notions of marriage and family, leading to a significant gap in perspectives between men and women on these matters. This inability to find a perfect match has had a direct and significant impact on the marriage rate among China's youth. To address this issue, the Chinese government has even introduced numerous policies aimed at mitigating the negative effects of these shifting attitudes. The current workplace environment in China is highly unfriendly to young people. Many industries are plagued by a culture of intense overtime. Just to keep a job, they have already sacrificed all their energy and time. When a person exhausts all their energy at work every day and doesn't even have the strength to speak after getting off work, you can hardly expect them to nurture a romantic relationship that requires a massive investment of time and effort. Romance requires time and a sense of relaxation, but under the high-load operation of young people today, mere survival has already drained all their strength. Love has become an incredibly unaffordable luxury. The mindset of this generation of Chinese young people has undergone a massive shift. In the past, people felt that the purpose of life was to endure hardship, work hard to earn and save money to give the next generation a better life. But young people today are starting to pursue their own quality of life. People have realized that if you don't get married, you not only avoid heavy mortgage pressure, but you can actually live a very free and decent life. You can spend money to travel, cultivate your hobbies, or just quietly read a book after work. People no longer believe in those empty promises of "it's for your own good in the future," but rather value real, present moment happiness. Many young people have also started to reflect on the meaning of having children. If bringing a child into the world just means letting them continue down this same old road full of competition and exhaustion, studying hard from a young age and working hard as an adult, then is bringing them into this world an act of love or just blind social inertia? The conclusion many young people have reached is, since I can't provide a relaxed, happy childhood or a secure future for a child, then not bringing them into the world is the greatest kindness I can show them. The older generation in China believes that not getting married is unfilial and a sign of failure. But young people argue that forcing oneself into a low-quality marriage and bringing a child into the world that they cannot take responsibility for is the true irresponsibility. This ideological chasm turns into a silent war at every Chinese New Year dinner table. In this confrontation, young people have chosen the most extreme weapon, non-cooperation. They no longer try to convince their parents. Instead, they simply opt out in practice. This withdrawal is not born out of weakness, but rather an incredibly resilient personal choice. Through this approach, they are compelling changes to the social environment, demanding greater gender equality, fairer employment conditions, and a more reasonable social security system. I don't think not marrying and not having kids is a tragedy. On the contrary, I believe it is the growing pain of ideological progress. It shows that Chinese young people are waking up. They are no longer willing to be hijacked by certain traditional, perhaps even outdated, values. We are starting to seriously think about what we are actually living for in this lifetime. Is it to complete the task of reproduction like a machine, or to live as an independent being and experience the beauty of this world? If the social environment cannot provide enough sense of security, and if getting married and having children means you have to sacrifice all your self-esteem and freedom, then choosing to be single is actually the greatest responsibility you can take for your own life. So rather than saying young people don't want to get married, it's more accurate to say that in this era full of uncertainty, they are using this method to seek a more dignified way to survive. I believe that Chinese young people's choice not to marry and have children isn't because they don't need love, nor because they enjoy loneliness. Rather, it's because they still hold a profound reverence for the concept of family. They feel that in their current state, having to work exhaustingly just to secure basic survival with absolutely no safety net for the future, rushing into starting a family would be irresponsible to their partner and even more so to the next generation. This is the most genuine mindset of Chinese young people when it comes to marriage and children. What is the situation like for young people and marriage in your countries? Feel free to leave a message in the comments section to discuss.